Recording the session beginning now. And so for this morning's class, it's number 5, assigning employees to schedules. And so is this Diane?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Diane, hi, it's Francisco. Just wanted to make sure that your employees have all been entered into the system and your schedule rotations have been created?
Our schedule rotations for the police have been created, but for the administrative staff, I just added them yesterday, and we don't have a schedule rotation set up for them yet. They really don't have
Okay.
it.
Okay. So that's okay. At least you have, some experience building schedules. So you'll be able to apply what we're going to cover today to the police side as well as to the other side once those administrative schedules have been created.
Right.
Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to be working primarily through the Build Schedule menu, and we're going to add employees to existing rotation.
Okay.
From this screen, you're going to start by selecting the date range that you want to create schedules for. Now, depending on the way your rotations were built, and by that I mean if you built an administrative schedule rotation that had a start date of January of 2016, that is the earliest that you're going to be able to assign someone. Okay? So you may have built your schedules with an effective date of maybe September, maybe you went a few months back. So you're going to choose what that start date should be and the end date as well. Now, for the police-based schedules, would you happen to know if they keep their schedules basically throughout their career, or do they bid on schedules?
They're actually assigned to a schedule, and then everybody, so if you're assigned so many months to the day schedule, then you're assigned so many months to the night schedule.
I understand. Okay, so depending on that pattern, you can choose, or they can choose, to build out the schedules as far ahead as they would like, with the understanding that they can always reassign people as they get moved around.
Okay.
Okay? So for this example, we're just going to build a schedule from July 1st to December 31st, and we're going to use the Select Employees button. Let's just move this window over here. We're going to use that button to choose which groups of people we want to assign at once. Now, this, of course, is going to show you the entire list of employees, but you can use the filtering options over to the right. So if you just wanted to work with a particular squad or a particular department, you can go ahead and choose which groups you would like to see and click on the Select and Close button up top. So what that did for me was that it just filtered out everyone but squads A through D, so I was only left with about 20 employees. Now, from this list, I still have to mark the ones I want to assign, so I can click on the All button, or I can individually mark the employees I want to work with.
Okay, so if you're doing half a squad for AM and half a squad for PM, you could individually list the ones that you wanted for each schedule?
Well, in fact, what you could do is you can just choose the entire group and when you click on Select and Close, you're still going to be able to choose what schedule rotation they're on. So you can just bring up the entire patrol division and one by one select which schedule rotation they're going into.
Okay.
Okay, so when you do this for the first time, you're going to notice that the rotation code and the rotation description columns are blank. That means that there's no previous history, there's no previous schedule that these folks were assigned to, at least through our system. You're seeing Squad A, Squad B in mind because these folks are already on a schedule and they've been on a schedule for a good part of this year. And so it sort of remembers. It knows what the last schedule rotation these guys were assigned to. However, for your purposes, what you're going to do is you're going to make sure that any part of the employee is highlighted, whether it's the name, any one of these columns is fine. And then over to the right, you're going to choose what schedule rotation they're going to be assigned to. As soon as you click on this green arrow, you'll see the rotation code and description appear. And you're going to continue doing that for everyone else on the list. Now, you can also hold down your control button. So if you needed to make multiple selections here, let's say everyone here is going to be added to Squad C, you can do that. Or you can do a range. So now holding down my Shift button after I highlight one person, I can just mark everyone and say, well, you're all going into Squad A. Now, for this morning, we're not going to assign all of these folks to their schedule rotations because that's just going to take a little longer than we really want to spend on this. So we'll just do it with one example. We'll add one of our guys here to one of our schedule rotations for this period of time. And before we do that, Diane, just wanted to point out the start and end time columns. In the event that you're assigning someone to a schedule, but they're working slightly different hours from everyone else, now might be a good opportunity to enter those times. And you might see this more in administrative schedules where you have a bunch of people who are working Monday through Friday, and they might share the same exact schedule rotation, but you might work 8 to 4, I might work 7 to 3, the guy down the hall is working 9 to 5. So we're all going to be assigned to the same Monday through Friday rotation, but we're going to have different start and end times. So here you can key in what those hours are for anyone that might apply to. Now, of course, for a patrol schedule, we may not be seeing a lot of this, but you might see it more for admin-related schedules.
I do have one question, though. If we have one person their normal schedule is Tuesday through Friday in admin, is that a separate schedule that has to be built as opposed to the Monday through Friday schedule?
Absolutely, because your schedule rotation that you build said that beginning on a Monday, the person working this schedule is working 5 days straight and has 2 days off. So you're going to have to create a separate rotation for, you mentioned what, it was a Tuesday through Friday?
Right.
Okay, so that's going to be a 4-on, 3-off rotation with a Tuesday start date. And we can take a peek at that if you would like.
That would be awesome, yeah. Because I'm trying to figure when they're all scheduled. And when you do a monthly review of your employees, it would show someone in that's not supposed to be in if they don't have separate schedules. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. Absolutely correct. So let's click on the Apply button. And Depending on the amount of people that you're assigning at any given time and the date range that you are building schedules for, those two things will affect how long this step takes to complete. So obviously, if you're going to build out your schedules for 5 years for 100 employees, well, go get yourself a cup of coffee, maybe go on your lunch break, and when you come back, it should be built. But, we built this for a relatively short period of time for one employee, so it didn't take very long at all. Now, it's important that once you have assigned people to your schedules, to take a look at your schedule views, something like a weekly, monthly, or yearly view, and just confirm that everyone is where they need to be. So if a pattern is wrong, if someone is working on a day they're not supposed to be working, then you've either assigned them to the wrong schedule rotation, or the schedule rotation was not built correctly, and you may have to take a look at how you set that up. And so we'll take a look at that next. If you don't have any questions on how to simply assign someone to a schedule, we can go right to the rotations, and we can address some of the administrative schedules you might have to build.
Oh, that would be perfect. Great.
Okay, let's take a look at, again, the Build Schedule menu. We're not going to move from there. We're going to click on Update Rotations. And right off the bat, you see I have an admin Monday through Friday already built in my system. So what VCS recommends is that whenever you build a schedule rotation, you use the department for the first part of your code, because you're going to have a two-part code here. So you'll notice I have administration, communications, detective bureau, records, and then I have some squad designations here. So I'm using admin, and in the second part of the code, just a very brief description of what type of schedule this is, in this case a Monday through Friday. Under the description, just something that's very clear to anyone else who might be tasked with building or extending your schedules, right? So, you might not necessarily be the person who's going to build the schedules for 2017. So just make that something that's easily identifiable to other administrators within your agency. Now, your start date, extremely important. The start date is when the work pattern actually begins. So, of course, for a Monday through Friday schedule, we must always begin on a Monday, because when we set the pattern, which defines when these folks are working, it's always going to assume that this begins on a Monday. So this 5 days on, it means Monday through Friday. That is your Saturday and Sunday. And that is the shift that the rotation is being tied to. So with your patrol schedules, a lot of these guys are working really the same work pattern. They might be working like a pitman type schedule, 2 days on, 2 days off, 3 days on, or whatever it might be. They're all working the same pattern. The difference is what days the pattern begins on, right? Your Squad A and Squad B guys are working several days apart. Still the same pattern, but just different work days. So let's talk about the Tuesday through Friday schedule. One like that would have just sort of a Tuesday through Thursday abbreviation like this. If you care to write it out, you can do that as well if that's just a little easier. You have the character length here to manage that, if you wish. Here, it must be a Tuesday. Now, I always like to push these back to the beginning of the year because I don't know how far back you want to build your schedules for. I mean, the year is, for the most part, almost over, right? So you may not choose to go that far back. You might say, well, we're going to go live with this thing in October. So we would never use this system to look at a schedule prior to October. That's fine. That's okay. But you lose nothing by building the rotation that far back.
Oh, okay, you don't. So it doesn't try to build information that isn't there.
It does not, because just because my rotation was built with a January 5, 2016 effective date, I can assign someone to it effective October 1st.
Okay.
Right? So it won't care about that. I will tell you this. This has happened. We'll be building a schedule rotation, and the person I'm building it with, such as yourself, will say, well, we're not going to really use this prior to, let's say, October. So all of my schedule rotations have a start date of no earlier than October 1st. And then they end up getting overruled by someone else that says, nope, we're going to build the schedule out for the entire year. Now you're going to have to go in to each rotation, and you're going to have to push the date back to January. And for your patrol schedules, you're going to have to take a second look at the rotation to make sure that the pattern is right. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen with you. I'm just saying that sort of thing happens. So that's why I always say, hey, just start it from January, because you can always assign someone, for October if necessary.
Right, that was our thought process too. We're actually going to go live on October 1st. So we were looking at the data, because when we put the people in, the cursory start thing was 9/8 when we started putting people in. So right now everybody's birthday is 9/8/2016. So
okay,
we're going to have to go back and change all that information. But I was thinking about the schedules and going, well, will this carry through to next year? So if I'm the employee on the administrative side that works Tuesday through Friday, I wish I was, but if I am that person, do I have to update all the schedules next year and put January 1, 2017 through December 31st?
No, not necessarily. Now, and that's where our end date comes into play, is for our end date, this isn't when you're assigning someone to the schedule. This is just how long you're making that schedule rotation active and available to use. So in most departments, schedules exist until whenever, right? We will always have a Monday through Friday schedule until the end of time. The problem is that when you start getting into like patrol schedules where you have work patterns, you don't want to build this out too long because it's going to take forever to save. So you, number one, want to make sure that your pattern is right. And then you can extend these schedule rotations for another 10, 20, 30 years as you need to. But for now, I always like to just build it out for a couple of years. And then below, we're going to enter the work pattern. So because this begins on a Tuesday, we're going to enter 4 and 3. So there is your Tuesday through, I'm sorry, it was Tuesday through Thursday or Tuesday through Friday?
Tuesday through Friday.
Okay, let's change that. My apologies there. Let's change Tuesday through Friday. So there's your 4 on, 3 off, and now I'm going to tie it to my admin shift. And at this point, I can save it, or if I'm building a more complex schedule, I can click on the View Schedule button, and it's going to show me a preview of what that rotation looks like. Now, because I built it out till 2020, it allows me to look ahead, right? So when it comes time to assign your part-time employee to this schedule, you might say, all right, I'm going to assign employees to existing rotations, the first screen we looked at this morning. And I'm going to assign my part-timer effective October 4th. Okay? Now, by the way, if October 1st is the effective date for the entire department, you can do that. You can say, okay, I'm going to assign her to the schedule effective October 1st. Well, that's an off day anyway, and the system knows that. So even though you assigned her to this schedule rotation effective October 1st, her first work day is not until the 4th.
Gotcha, okay.
Now, you may choose to build your schedule rotations until the 31st of December. That's cool, no problem there. When you extend your schedules for another year, it's already embedded onto the calendar. Now, this isn't really a problem for your admin folks, but for the patrol schedules it is, because these guys on January 1st might be mid-rotation.
Right.
But the system knows that, because the system knows that, and I'll even choose one of, I'll save what I have here. It won't take very long. But when this is done, I'll show you one of my patrol squads, and I'll show you what that pattern looks like from year to year.
Okay. So here we do a 3 on, 4 off, 4 on, 3 off schedule for them for a month.
Mm-hmm.
So it should be built that way for a month?
No, I would build it out for years, right? Because here's the thing. And I have more of a Pitman type schedule here in my system, which is 2 on, 2 off, 3 on, 2 off, 2 on, 3 off. Someone must work this schedule year round.
Right.
Okay? So the Squad A schedule needs to be this perpetual schedule. That doesn't mean the same guy is working it every year, every 6 months. So I may have a 6-month period where everyone is assigned to that schedule rotation you just described. And then 6 months later, we're going to reassign people, right? So you may, based on the way your schedules are managed, you may not build out for the whole year. You might say, okay, I'm going to build it out for 6 months, because before the next 6 month begins, I may move people around. Now, if I am working one schedule for 6 months and then working another one for 6 months, that means you're going to have to build a work rotation for a whole year.
Okay.
That's sort of awkward, and it's going to take a long time. I feel it's just easier to create the rotations this way and just assign on a 6-month basis. Okay.
Just
now,
switching up their schedule on that other screen.
Yeah, and so what one possibility is build your schedule from October to December. There we go, December 31st. And here I'll just grab a handful of guys here. So they might be on one rotation up until December 31st. You save that, and once it's done, change the date range. To whenever this might be.
Oh, that's really cool. Okay. So it'll do
okay. And then pre-assign them, if you will, to whatever rotation they're going to after that. So you can build these schedules as far ahead as you really need to.
That's great. So the schedules are really key to getting your monthly calendars, your weekly calendars, correct? Because one of the bosses had mentioned that can we just do bare bones to get it rolling, but if you don't actually put schedules in, you're not going to get an accurate picture of where your employees are at any given time.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. If your schedules have to be 100% correct. Everything else has a certain level of flexibility to it, right? But let's think of it this way. If I want to take a vacation day on September 20th, whatever that might be, the system is not going to let me request a day off if I'm not on the schedule.
Okay.
Okay?
That was my next question. If you're not on the schedule for the person that we talked about Tuesday through Friday, and she tried to clock in with her fingerprint on Monday, is the system going to let her do that?
Oh, it absolutely will. Will it get her paid? Probably not.
Okay.
Right? Because the time clock is normally used just as a time and attendance tool just to track who is here at any given time. You guys may be paying more off of the schedule, right? And that might work for salaried folks such as yourself. With your part-timer, though, you have a choice. You're either going to pay her off of the schedule, where it's just going to read and say, okay, well, I see that she's scheduled to work Tuesday through Friday, so that's what I'm going to pay her. You can do that.
Mm-hmm.
You can choose to pay her off of her time clock. So if she's punching in and out, you can collect the total hours, and you can pay her off of that instead. All the while, you guys as salaried employees are just being paid off of the schedule, right, because you're salaried.
Right.
The third option, and what I find what a lot of the departments like, is they treat part-timers, I said that wrong. What they do is they process part-timers using overtime. What I mean by that is they build the schedule so that it reflects the fact that this person is on the schedule from Tuesday through Friday. But they don't pay off of that information. What they do is when that part-timer comes to work on that Tuesday, or I should say at the end of the day, they submit a request for payment through the system. They say, okay, I came here at 9 a.m., I left here at 4 p.m., and they submit their request. And they use almost the same mechanism that people would use for overtime, because they're telling us the shift that they were working, the hours that they worked, and then you or someone who acts as the supervisor verifies the entry and approves it. And so by approving it, you're now making that payable.
Okay.
So a lot of departments like that because, number one, they want to post the schedule. That's very important. But they don't necessarily want to pay automatically on that for multiple reasons. So they'll have the person enter that request at the end of the day or at the end of the week, and then supervisors just approve those. And that is what now becomes payable.
Okay. So that's how most people use it for their part-timers?
That's how they do it. Some pay off of the time clocks. Some of them do. Some of them will say, listen, you know, I don't care that the schedule says Tuesday through Thursday. This person may have come in on a Monday because their schedule changed. So they're going to punch in at 9 a.m. on Monday morning and they're going to leave at 12. And then on Tuesday, they might end up working less hours. But that's okay. We're going to look at the time clock information, and at the end of that 2-week period, we're going to say, hey, this person punched in a total of 35 hours, and that's exactly what we're going to pay them for.
Okay, now is there a way to set it up that way? Because what our goal is for our part-time employees is to keep them at 25 hours a week, to make sure that we don't have the responsibility of health benefits. So how would I set someone up that makes sure that it's going to record the hours to make sure that they're staying in line with the 25 hours a week?
Now, you are using a time clock. You're using a time clock system purchased through us?
Yes, it's the thumbprint scan.
Okay. Okay. Really, there's the only thing you have to do is under the Employee Center, and I'm sorry, that's the under Pay Info. See how I have a clock swipe number in there? You just need to make sure that everyone has a clock swipe number. Now, for some, that could just be like a payroll ID number. That's fine. But that's really all you have to do. When we build your payroll export, what we're going to do is we're just going to separate part-timers from salaried employees.
Okay.
And one of the ways we do that, and you might already be doing this, is that person just has to have part-time employee checked.
Right. Yeah, we've done that, but there's swipe in and out mandatory. Should everyone be checked for that if they're going to use the thumbprint?
No, they don't need that for the thumbprint. When the first thing you need to do is you need to mount the kiosk or the time clock systems. After you do that, there's an enrollment process. So what happens is you schedule and bring everyone over, and you collect their thumbprint data. Now, you guys have on-site training?
Yes, we do on the 26th of September. We'll be here.
On the 26th. Okay, that is something that on day one you guys can do with your instructor. Just make sure that the kiosk system is mounted and connected to the network, and then your instructor will show you how you can enroll people. It's actually very, very easy.
Okay.
Now, everyone might be punching in and out, right? Because you want that information for just general time and attendance purposes. But it may not necessarily affect payroll. Or I don't know. I mean, you tell me. Are you going to be paying off of the punches?
Eventually, yes, we are.
Now, here's the thing that you just need to keep in mind. Our punch-in information records, of course, when you punched in, when you punched out, and if you punch in and out for lunch, it's going to record that too. But what happens if I'm a 9 to 5 employee and I punch in at 9:05?
Well, I think that depends on the parameters we set it up for, correctly?
Well, our system is going to say that they punched in at 9:05. So that's going to affect the total amount of hours that we're going to report to you. So
there's nothing in the system that says give them a 5 minutes grace period. If they're supposed to be scheduled 9 to 5 and they punched in at 8:55 or 9:05, it's 9 o'clock.
If you're going to export the data out to a payroll system, then no. If the payroll system is going to receive a file from us, it's going to give them total punch times. There are internal reports that you can run that will allow you to measure someone's lateness based on those parameters. But whenever we spit that data out, it's total hours. There's nothing that's occurring in there that's rounding it up, because the same thing is true for people that punch in early, right? If I'm scheduled to be here at 9 o'clock and I punch in at 8:30, that's probably still considered 9 o'clock. If I punch in at 9:05, you're probably saying, okay, that gets pushed to 9. That's not a problem. But if I punch in at 9:16, now that's late. So there's just certain parameters there that when this gets thrown into payroll, our system's simply not going to know the answer to that question. That's why most of the departments we work with use the punch in and out as a way of monitoring attendance, but not necessarily paying off of it, just because there's so many different parameters. And the rules might be different for different groups of people.
Right.
If I as a full-time employee punch in at 9:10, I might not be considered late. But the part-timer we just discussed, if they punch in at 9:10, that might be considered late.
Absolutely. That's the question that we're trying to address, because you're right. Now, if they're salaried employees, if we work 35 hours or if we work 50 hours, we're still getting the same paycheck. So, yeah, it wouldn't matter for us, but it would matter for an hourly part-time employee. So
absolutely correct. Now, for most part-time employees, you go based on just total punch hours, right? So if they punch in at 9:10, well, they're getting a smaller paycheck, obviously. So for the payroll side of things, when it comes to a salaried employee, someone who does not have the part-time employee checkbox marked, we wouldn't report regular hours, or we would just report a standard 80 or 70, depending on
that was the question that my manager had. He's trying to decide if people have to punch out and punch back in for lunch, because we pay them for lunch. So we work 8:30 to 4:30 with an hour lunch, but you're paid for that hour because we pay them 80 hours to pay. So would they have to swipe in and out for lunch? Would that be deducting time from their hours?
No, it wouldn't be deducting time. So, like a salaried employee, right? I'm going to get paid for my 8-hour day, no matter what, right? Now, if I punch in late and I do that too many times, my supervisor will be able to view that through the system and address that with me. And in fact, if it becomes excessive, my supervisor can use time off, like unpaid time off, and post that onto the schedule for the hours that I missed if my pay is going to get docked. And that's probably extreme, right? In most cases, it's going to end up me calling the guy in and saying, hey, you've been late. Here's your punch-in report, and you were late a half hour on this day, an hour that day. Hopefully that's the end of it. Now, the punch in and out for lunch is not required for your full-time employees because, as you said, they're paid, but you may still choose to have them punch out, right? Because you only get 1 hour of paid lunch. If the clock-in shows that you left at 12 and showed back up at 1:30, we're going to have a conversation, right? It's not that I am going to it's not that it's going to affect your pay. It's just we're tracking that. Now, let's talk about the part-timers. I might be on the schedule for 8 hours, but I might get 1 hour of unpaid lunch. So in total, I'm only going to be paid 7 hours on any given day. Now, if I punch in an hour late, but I punch out an hour late, then it might be a wash. And you guys might exercise some form of flexible scheduling with your part-timers. Okay, you're going to be in at 10, but you're going to leave at 6. Okay, cool, no problem. So the punch hours will be correct. It will be completely accurate. It's going to be based on what they actually did on that day. So when it comes time to export this data out, we're going to say, okay, if you're salaried, we're not going to look at your punch-in information. We're going to look at your time off. We're going to look at your overtime, possibly job assignments. So if you have someone in DPW who's driving a forklift on one day and we need to give them a different pay rate for that, we might need to collect that information. So those might be the three main items that we're going to use to process payroll for a full-time employee. Whereas with a part-timer, time off may not apply, but the punch-in and out will. So we may, whenever we look at a part-time employee, say, let's grab the regular hours, because obviously the payroll company has no idea what that person should be paid for, right? Because the payroll company knows that they have to cut you a check every 2 weeks for the same amount, but they just don't know that for your part-timer. So that's going to be the only source of information that the payroll system has, is the punch hour. So we would make that condition in your payroll export, and that's pretty much it. You still have the punch in and out times that you can report on for anyone else, but as a general rule, probably wouldn't affect pay.
Okay, great. So it's purely an administrative decision what the bosses decide that we're going to punch in and out for lunch, and the same would be true for the DPW people, that they only get a half an hour lunch, but they get 2 15-minute breaks. So should they be punching out and then back in for their break?
Well, you know, it really comes down to what your administrators want to see on the schedule. You know, some departments will say, you know, I really want them to punch in and out for lunch because if they're not here, I need to know about it.
Right. So it's
right.
tracking tool. It's not going to. The DPW guys are salaried employees, but they differ from us because the administrative employees that are salaried get an hour paid lunch. These guys get a half an hour lunch and 2 15-minute breaks. So if the public is complaining because we're all public employees, well, every time I turn around, he's at Wawa. Well, if he's punched out for his 15-minute break,
yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, you know, we don't have breaks here, but I used to work for a company where we did many years ago. This was like a call center environment, and the 15 minutes break was paid for, but the condition was that you couldn't leave the building, right? It wasn't like your lunch time. Right, like that was your break time. You couldn't go out and do anything. With you guys, it's a different story. If I have a 15-minute break and I want to run out and get a cup of coffee, okay. And just like you said, you know, in the event that someone says, hey, you know, this guy was, I don't know, I'm going to use a really extreme situation here. Was at the coffee shop and there was like a problem or something like that, you can say, well, he was on his own time, right? He wasn't working for us. He wasn't on company business, or he wasn't on, you know, he wasn't doing anything for us. He was on his own free time. You can always come back and look at the reports and say, yeah, he was punched out during that time.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And I'm using a super extreme example that would never happen, but the point is that this is all information that you can gather. It doesn't have to affect pay. It doesn't mean that this guy is going to get paid 15 minutes less because he punched out. Now, you guys might have your own internal issues about guys wanting to punch out, you know, 3-4 times a day. But, you know, that's going to be more of an administrative issue on your side.
Right. Right. But as I said, because we're a municipality, and obviously our DPW and our police officers are the most visible to the public. So people can call and say, hey, you know, there's a bunch of trash over on Main Street, but this guy is in Wawa getting coffee. And So maybe it would be a good idea for us to be able to say, yeah, well, he was punched out, he was on his break, which is the Teamster, he's entitled to his break time. He's a contract employee. So maybe that is, and it's not actually going to affect their salary because they're all full-time salaried employees, but it's an entitlement through their contract.
People really get that silly?
You know what? Yes. We work their tax dollars that pay us. So, yes, it happens fairly regularly here.
Wow. I tell you, I guess maybe I shouldn't be so surprised, as if garbage ever sticks around for that long around here. I mean, this isn't Russia. Not that there's anything wrong with Russia, right? But you hear some nightmares about stuff like that never getting done. Here it always gets done eventually, right? But yeah, I guess if you ever had to come back and look at that data, you would at least be able to say, no, this guy was on a break, or he was on his lunch hour. You would certainly have that information available.
Yeah, I think that might be the way to go, because we have had, obviously they ride around in trucks with our Maple Shade Township plastered on the side,
sure,
yellow, and one individual in particular goes home for lunch and to save money, and they were complaining that he was going home and taking a nap, and the truck is always in front of his house, and so those kind of issues that do come up, it would actually be a help for not only the administrator who has to deal with the irate public, but for the employee themselves to be covered. So that was one of the questions I had, if it was going to affect their pay, but not just to be able to use it as a timekeeping tool to make sure we know where people are and what they're doing.
Absolutely. It is absolutely possible. That is probably the most common application for the punch information.
Great. So that'll answer the question for my manager, which he's mulling over whether or not the employees are going to be required to punch in and punch out for their lunch, and if that would affect their time status for payroll when we're actually starting the VCS and the POS program, and then we're going into moving our payroll system to a system called Prime Point. We've been with ADP for 20 years, and it's just kind of not working for us. So this whole venture is, brought up a whole bunch of, well, what if this happens? And so it's a very stressful and busy time for us, but we're looking forward to being able to pinpoint everyone's activity. It'll make our council people who are elected officials and our bosses very happy. So.
Well, in terms of Prime Point, we already do payroll interfacing with them. We actually do it for ADP as well. So we have experience with both. Although I tell you, it's not the first time I've heard that ADP in a municipal environment is not an ideal fit. I guess ADP is probably better suited for private companies.
Yeah, definitely. They were great for years. We've had them for 20 years, but when they rolled out their Workforce Now platform, which is a web-based platform, it's not ideal for a municipality. We have a lot of state statutes we have to follow, and obviously our police require a totally different pay grid for shift differential and court and different things like that, and they just don't seem to be able to keep up with the needs that we have, and we're always retrofitting things, and I think they're really not interested in municipal work anymore because it's very taxing for them. So we decided to go with Prime Point, and one of the first questions we asked them was if they worked with the POS and the VCS system, and they said absolutely. So that's not a problem with them, and we're hoping that the transition is smooth and accurate and as painless as possible. So.
Yeah. I mean, we already have a template, if you will, for how the data has to be exported. Now, obviously, each department is a little different from one another. Some pay differential, some don't. The rules are a little different, but in terms of how that data gets communicated over to Prime Point, it's all done the same way. So hopefully we should see pretty seamless transition for you guys.
Yeah, we're pretty excited about the new system. We've had a lot of struggles, especially this year. I don't know if it's the version that they're running on ADP currently, but it seems like they rushed out this brand new version, and there's a lot of kinks in it that it doesn't compensate for municipal government, and the fact that we have to follow state statutes with our pensions, and so it's been a little bit painful this year from
I can imagine.
on, but we're hoping with these two new systems. And I'll be honest with you, when I first got onto the VCS system, I was very intimidated. It looked like a lot of computer programming, which, I said to the manager, I'm not a computer programmer. And he said, I'm telling you, you can do this. You take the classes. But the more I took the classes, the more confused and concerned I was. Yesterday, I got all of the administrative group built, and they have employee profiles. So he was right. I was panicking unnecessarily, but when you start into the classes and it's a blank screen, you think, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into here? But
I agree with you. Looking at that empty page can be intimidating because the application is designed to be very flexible and in some cases quite customizable. That is that's the trade-off, right? If the system did everything one way, it was this way or the highway, then it would be a lot easier to implement. And that's why we offer the help out sessions, because we totally get it. I had to learn this program at some point, and that's why the classes discuss things at a high level, covering topics in a manner that the vast majority of clients will utilize it for. And then those help out sessions fill in the gaps, where if you are doing something maybe slightly differently, you have the opportunity to address that with someone from the company who's experienced enough to help you.
Yeah, that's been really great. So I'm sure I'll be taking advantage of those help out sessions more than once before this process is over. But once I actually started to do it, I went, oh, okay, I know I have to go here now and click this before I can move on. So it wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be, but it is highly customizable, which is actually a good thing. So the trade-off is you are terrified going into it and then figure out, okay, I can do this, and this is going to work for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's actually been quite the learning experience, and I think it is going to help us. I know that the police side of it is going to make my life as payroll administrator much easier, because all of the information is being gathered by them downstairs and then coming up to me in a pre-formed package that's ready to be paid. So
that's correct.
that is, once we get through this little difficult time, I guess, getting it all together, that's the payoff for me. So I am looking forward to it being, a valuable tool for getting all the police officers paid correctly and on time, and I think it gives them a lot more viability in their scheduling system. So I'm going to apply that to the administrative side as well, with seeing on vacation, knowing who's going to be in and who's going to be out. So we really are looking forward to all the benefits that it has.
Oh, sure. Yeah, because that's something, and they can choose how far they want the system involved in certain processes, right? If they're telling the system, listen, I need 5 officers working, right? Every hour, I need 5 working. And you have people taking time off, and then one guy tries to put in for a day off on a shift that's already operating at its minimum. If they want to, they can have the system automatically deny the time off, right? Let the guy know, hey, listen, you're not going to get it. So they choose really how far they want the system to be involved in the process. Are they going to still manage the schedules on a day-to-day basis, looking at things, or are they going to sort of hand over some of those functions over to the system, to handle it? And they're going to see a lot more of that, especially with things like overtime distribution. Right? If there's a staffing shortage, do they just want to text message out those opportunities to people and have them accept or decline work that way? Or do they still want to call people up off of a list and say, hey, hey, Steve, you want to come in and work that Friday? No? Okay. Hey, Jim, you want to come in and work? Okay. Hey, Jane, no, you don't want to do it? They're certainly free to continue processing that work the way they always have, or again, they can explore kind of new and exciting ways of doing it, which could provide significant, time savers.
Absolutely, and the chief of police who actually saw this system, I guess at a convention, he was the driving force in getting us to pick this package up. And he is kind of a computer geek. He loves all the new and exciting things. So definitely I'm thinking that at least on the police side, they're going to be using that. Maybe not so much on the DPW side because they're kind of technology shy. So they might still call people if we have a big snowstorm, hey, you want to, you're next up, do you want to come in for the overtime? Or they might do that, but I definitely know that the police, they're all about time-saving technology. Because for them, minutes count. So it works better for them to have that, well, you didn't call me and I'm next on the seniority. No, you're not, because the computer says this guy is. So I know that the chief is going to look, use it to the full advantages of the system. So some people will, and some people, like I said, are still a little technology shy, and they might still do it the old way. But as long as it works and everybody gets paid for what they're entitled to, it's with me. So I don't have to cut extra checks and you left me off the list and so on and so forth. So I think all the way around it's going to be a good deal for Maple Shade.
Wonderful.
So I'm sorry, I got you way off track of your training. But
no, that's okay because we covered assigning everyone to the schedules. If you're comfortable moving ahead with building the rest of the rotations for your admin, specifically your part-timer, we're done for the morning. So that's all I had for you today.
That is great. The main question I had was whether we could skip the schedules, and I kind of had a feeling that, even if you're operating at bare bones, the schedules are important. So now I know I have to get to work on those this morning, and I'll be ready for the next class this afternoon.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much for your time. And it was actually great to be the only person in the class and get so much information from you.
That's nice when it works out that way, huh?
Yeah, it really is cool. I have a lot better feel for the system this week and kind of know that I'm sort of on the right track with the way I thought things should go.
Okay, awesome.
So have a great morning, and maybe I'll hear from you this afternoon at 1:30.
Yeah, now today at 1:30, let's see, there is actually no class scheduled for this afternoon.
Let's see, Friday. You know what, they're Monday and Tuesday.
That's right. That's right. So the next one for you would be the 13th. There's one at 9:30, which is class number 6. I think this would probably only apply to the police side. That's your validation setup. That's where you're going to learn how to set up the minimum staffing requirements for the patrol shifts.
That's awesome because that means I can skip it. Next week is payroll week for me. This is one of the few months in the year we get 3 paychecks. So Monday and Tuesday were kind of a problem for me, but if it's only for the police side of the scheduling, I can probably skip that because they're handling the POS system downstairs, so that's perfect.
Oh, so you're free and clear. You have a bit of a vacation from us.
Yeah, a little bit, and it's awesome. Thank you so much, Francisco. It was a pleasure talking with you this morning, and I hope you have a good day.
Pleasure was mine. Enjoy the weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.